And now I want to tell you about our next panel, which is how to advertise to mobile listeners. So we're going to address the question of how your advertisers might best engage mobile listeners. What strategies are there for maximizing response to the advertising messages? And it's going to come from some people who have actually been putting stuff into action as far as that's concerned. I'd like to introduce the moderator of this panel, Paul Jacobs. He's the president and founder of JakeApps. JakeApps has become one of the biggest developers of mobile apps in the U.S., with close to 500 apps developed for radio stations around the world. VPGM Paul Jacobs' background is in radio sales, probably knows a lot of people in the room, and general manager. And at JakeApps, he works with clients to develop comprehensive revenue generation strategies. Please welcome Paul Jacobs.
Not bad for a set change. Boy, is there anything worse than following Kurt Hansen? What a great presentation that was. I guess we've got our work cut out for us. We've got a lot to cover. Certainly none of this makes sense without a revenue component, and we've got three really smart people with a lot of experience in the space who are going to share their wisdom with us. I mean, radio and internet streamers have come a long way toward creating excellent mobile app programs. I think radio in the App Store has done as good of a job as any other space that's out there. We've got the ability to motivate our CUME. We've got sales reps. We've got everything in place to generate downloads, but also to create multi-platform digital solutions for advertisers in app, website, social, database, and more. No other space in the App Store has what radio has to create an incredibly vital and profitable solution for advertisers. Yet, as you've heard so far today, and I think you may hear today, it's still in its early stages. CPMs are kind of all over the place. Every time we put a new app out in the market, there's more inventory. You know, the laws of supply and demand are always pulling. Advertisers are faced with so many different options, metrics, and frankly, the ability to have to remake their businesses. That this is happening at the same time. And again, you heard in the earlier session the challenges that agencies are facing trying to grapple with all of this. It's a real problem. Now, I come out of the radio sales side and I run an app company, so I'm completely bipolar here. And I see this from a lot of dimensions. And frankly, I'm left with a lot more questions than answers in terms of what's working best, what are the best solutions, what's the best approach. You know, is it an aggregated approach like iHeart or what CBS is doing? Is it a more local, individualized approach like what Greater Media, Entercom, Lincoln Financial, companies like that are doing? You know, it's all over the place. And so I think we are at a very interesting crossroads. So let me introduce our panel and then turn it over to them. Doug Stern, who to my left, joined Pandora Media in 2008. I don't think he needs to introduce the company. I think we all know that. Doug heads up audio sales. He oversees a nationwide team of media professionals who are focused on delivering customized marketing and advertising solutions. He also is in charge of the Pandora Audio Lab. It's a testing ground for improving audio, creative, and the listener experience. Jeff Pescatello is the EVP of Lenco Media, the operator of Radio Loyalty Online and mobile radio platform. He's responsible for advertising sales and their system of replacing audio spots with high-priced audio and video. And Amy Becker is the VP of Marketing at TargetSpot, the largest digital audio ad network. She's got more than 15 years' experience in digital agency and packaged goods. And what's interesting about her background is she's very consumer experience-based, so I think she's going to bring that to the table. So before I hand it off to Jeff and then we start working this, I just want to share three quick slides with you. These just came out from Flurry, and I think it's pretty interesting. This first one has to do with app inventory versus online display ad spend. And as you can see, we're right at the precipice of a tipping point. Something's about to happen, according to the predictions, this fall, and it's all good. Mobile app versus web consumption, minutes per day, from June 2010, December 2010, June 2011. A few months ago, something happened. Time spent consuming on apps passed web. And then finally, household income. Smartphone user versus the U.S. average. As you can see, the average household income of a U.S. smartphone user is 50% higher than a non-smartphone user. And in terms of education, more than double, bachelor degree or higher. This is an advertiser's dream. All the metrics, and as we heard in the last panel, tons of different metrics going on out there. But it is all heading into one place, into mobile devices, with a high-quality audience and a great way to reach them. So let's start off with Jeff. Talk to us about what your company is doing and what your point of view is for the mobile market from an advertising perspective.
Okay, thank you. Well, Radio Loyalty helps small to medium-sized broadcasters monetize both their online streams and their mobile streams. And our approach is a little bit different than some others. We kind of take a guide approach when we talk about mobile. We help the radio stations develop their mobile strategy by replacing their online in-stream ads with high-value mobile video ads. And for most stations, that's kind of a new technology for them. When a user is using their mobile device, they're looking at it, they're highly engaged in that device, and you can substitute that audio ad with a video ad and create a lot of value and get a lot higher click-through rate, which also turns out to be better for creating dollars to that station.
What's the mood of the advertisers? What are you hearing from them?
So the biggest thing when you talk to advertisers is that there's no common platform for them to buy at scale. One of the things that Pandora has done very nicely is they've created a platform that's easy for advertisers to buy. So what our company has done is we're trying to take those small to medium-sized broadcasters, aggregate them in a way that's easy for a big agency to buy millions of impressions at scale, and in turn give that money back to the broadcasters so they can compete against the Pandoras of the world.
Pretend that Doug is not sitting next to you. Is Pandora plowing the field? I mean, are they leading the way to get advertisers more comfortable with this, and are you able to kind of fill in?
Well, certainly they're helping raise the tide, you know, and the good thing is there are tens of thousands of broadcasters out there, and there's lots and lots of listing going on. I think we can all agree that, you know, more and more listings happening on mobile devices as people, you know, get smartphones, which they haven't had the ability to do until the last year and a half or so. That, and now with these new unlimited digital plans, that usage just continues to keep going up. So every station has to at least look at what their mobile strategy is. They may not be able to make money in 2011. They might not make a lot of money in 2012, but certainly the latter half of 2012 and 2013 and beyond, that's where the majority of their listing is going to happen. Their revenue is going to start occurring on that mobile side.
Earlier this year, Eyal Goldberger, the CEO of TargetSpot, unveiled a research study that not only was full of tremendous content, but if you've seen it, had by far the best PowerPoint graphics in the history of PowerPoint. There's no question. I think it cost more than the research. Amy has brought one slide with her, and I'd like her to walk through it with you.
Sure. I think one of the key questions is in terms of the digital audio listener, how many of them are actually listening on their phones? I think, you know, we're always trying to quantify the audience and figure out, is there a there? And the answer is unequivocally yes. 45% of the digital audio consumers are actually already listening on their mobile phones. So we already know there's critical mass in terms of the digital audio audience, and 45 of those guys are already listening on their phones. And they're spending a really long time every day listening on their mobile devices. 84% are actually telling us that they're listening 1 to 3 hours a day. That seemed like a huge amount of time to me, and so when I actually got that research back, I did some digging because I wanted to understand, you know, what are these guys doing on their mobile phones when they're listening? And it turns out a huge activity, in fact, the number one activity was exercising. So that number starts to make sense. If this is the device that people are listening to as they go to the gym and they bring this as their source of their entertainment while they're working out or, you know, running on the treadmill, running outside, what have you, that time spent makes more sense. Additionally, the next largest activity was waiting. And waiting broken out into a lot of different activities, but one of the most interesting activities, I think, from a marketing perspective, is actually waiting online to pay for something. So frequently people are listening to mobile content on their mobile devices while they're waiting in line to pay. So there's actually a great opportunity there to impact a transaction. They're also listening while they're waiting for other things, be it waiting while traveling, which was another huge one, waiting at doctor's offices for appointments, waiting for meetings, etc. The next thing that we actually also looked at was tablet devices, because clearly this is a huge growth opportunity in the market as we're talking about mobile content and the portability of content. And I'm sure a lot of you in this room have looked at tablet consumption, and as is the case across the board, people who have tablets love content and they tend to overconsume it. And that's the same is true for this market as well. For starters, when we did this research, which at this point was before the release of the iPad 2, the actual data was gathered at the end of 2010, so in December 2010, 15% of listeners already had a tablet, and that is actually 4.5 times that of the general population. So again, I think someone mentioned earlier, this is definitely a tech-savvy audience. This is an early adapter audience, absolutely a marketer-friendly audience. And again, these guys over-consuming the content, 75% of them are listening 1 to 3 hours a day. 35% of them are actually spending 3+ hours a session. So listening for a really long time at a stretch.
Well, that's interesting. You really made up two key points. One, people who listen to audio on mobile are very fit and thin because they work out, but they're also sedentary because they wait online. So not exactly sure.
They're exercising while they're online.
There you go. Maybe that's it. We're going to go to Doug, who's going to present to us a couple of winning campaigns that Pandora has done. And after that, we are going to do questions, and there's a microphone walking around, and I've got a great little list here. But if you have questions, we certainly want to get to those as well. So Doug, play the audio.
Take it away.
Take it away. Let me just find my little cursor here. Here we go.
That one does it to me every time. While getting a stain on your favorite shirt may not be music to your ears, with Clorox's new My Stain app, you don't have to sweat the small stains. Click to download the new My Stain app from Clorox.
The listener taps and goes straight to the app. This is Paul asked me if I would bring a couple of examples of how some of the advertisers are engaging our our platform, and I've just picked a couple, with the idea being that that as you look at mobile as a delivery channel versus a user experience across all channels, it kind of introduces a different set of challenges. I remember 2 years ago sitting on a panel at this very conference and talking about the fact that in the summer of '08, the first time that the Pandora app had been introduced for the iPhone, the adoption rate was so substantial that we recognized right away we're going to have to figure out this marketplace, that it would be vastly different, that the listenership wasn't going to be necessarily attached or tethered, to an office or a computer. And what's been gratifying is, I mean, a lot of the growth stories have been chronicled already, but what's been gratifying is to see the education and the speed with which advertisers are now coming to market. Many times, those advertisers, because they have either consumed, some form of audio product on their smartphone or on a tablet, are familiar with it being a different experience. So the folks, the agency for Clorox, built an app called My Stains. My Stains?
My Stain.
My Stain.
How personal.
And essentially what it allows the downloader to do is look up stains, and it provides solutions. Very simple value proposition. They had a remarkable run. It remains 4 stars on the iTunes review. And anyway, I thought that was an interesting example of a burgeoning category, app-to-app advertising.
Before we get to the other one, for the three of you, what's the most important metric for advertisers? What's the one thing you want to have that they're either asking about or you have to deliver for them to buy you?
The advertisers that we deal with typically want to make sure that when their ad is seen, they get some sort of an action. Like in his case, the app being downloaded, or them going to the page and liking them on Facebook or whatever that happens to be, whatever their requirement is. So in essence, most of the times when we're dealing with advertisers, they want to make sure that their ads are being seen and an action's being taken on that ad.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, so some indicator of engagement, right? Time spent with the app is important, but the days of just announcing that, we have 18 million downloads doesn't necessarily fly in the face of all the analytics that are being developed.
Want to walk us through this one?
Sure. So the second example I brought was for a movie studio in Southern California. I remember, again, dating, maybe this was a year ago, but one of the discussion points around mobile advertising was the size of the screen and how can you really engage somebody with a simple banner. And again, the technology is moving so quickly, and the willingness of listeners to consider this a fair value exchange for a free service allows studios now to promote their films with video. So an ad is served, a banner ad is served, you tap, and voila, you have a trailer that launches.
If you think your relationship is crazy, try
Long distance
relationship.
on September 3rd.
The long distance thing is hard. You know what that does to your emotional stability?
Is that really how you cry? I cry like that all the time.
Going the distance. Rated R.
So what's been intriguing, we've had a debate for some time at Pandora about the length of that interruption with a video. And what we've learned just in real-time analytics and getting feedback from our audience is that if it's an entertainment-focused advertisement, the listener is much more comfortable with that. But to this date, that is the extent of we will let somebody run a video that runs as long as 30 seconds in that category.
Do you look at it very granularly and nervously when you do a 30-second to see if there's any automatic downturn in usage?
I would tell you that we have some great analytic experts at Pandora.
I bet you do.
Who are watching spikes consistently.
Amy, you've got a lot of experience with the consumers. What are they telling you about advertising, whether it be banner, pre-roll, video, whatever, in apps?
I think the key learning is always that it has to be contextually relevant. And I think across the board, responses tend to be higher when the ad is delivered closer to the message that's being delivered. So, for example, if it's some sort of messaging about a retail offer, something at a retail location, and the message is delivered, and the consumer is, within that environment or close to that environment, redemption rates would tend to be much higher for that type of a message.
The ads themselves, are there any differences in the best practices that we all need to know of audio ads in mobile compared to what we've been producing on the air all these decades? Yeah.
I'll take it, but seeing that we concentrate on video, I'm going to just use it as video instead of audio. I think that the thing that we can take from it is that terrestrial broadcasters are different than internet-only broadcasters. And terrestrial broadcasters, typically their audience is conditioned to listen to advertisements during a certain format clock that you guys have. And internet-only broadcasters, they typically have a much lower ad load. So when we have a terrestrial broadcaster that's got 3 and 4 minute stop sets, which is not unusual, you can put back-to-back 30-second video ads or even audio ads in that stop set, and you're not going to upset the user because they're conditioned to listen to it. On the internet-only side, though, you will upset them. There is a balance between the number of ads you can put in that ad load and getting a reaction or a response from the actual user because they just don't want to have a big of ad load.
Amy?
I think also I was mentioning about context being important, but I think that I need to say add a caveat to that, which is that context is absolutely important, and really mobile is really all about further enabling the marketers to follow their consumer. But you don't want to stalk the consumer. I think you absolutely, as you're following the consumer, you want a lot of transparency with your audience to let them know that there's an opportunity for them to opt in to certain types of messaging opportunities. I think wherever you can share with the consumer your intention and provide clarity about the targeting capabilities, I think that's a critical piece of the equation with mobile.
Yeah, one postscript to that would probably be the expectation of a listener in a personalized environment is higher, than the expectation of the audience to a broadcast. And again, we're gratified because we see creative agencies and strategists addressing that in the creative they deliver to us.
In a previous session, it was asked, are there any agency people represented here? And no hands went up, so it became a feeding frenzy. What is the real deal at the agencies? I mean, how far? It's easy to just, turn them into a caricature of people who are buying newspaper, which may or may not be true. But what is really going on at the agencies? They must understand what's going on. They are getting demand from clients. How are they responding to the demand from consumer and obviously all the offerings that are out there?
Well, I would venture to say that the supply side has forced those conversations. And while it has been at times glacial in the evolution, I would say that today versus 2-3 years ago, we're seeing an emergence of people that understand the benefits and the synergies between offline and online media. And they recognize that there's a need, there's a hunger and an appetite, knowing that online media is measurable. Mobile media is measurable. They want it measured and they want to see what that looks like and to be able to share the results and analytics on the back end with their customers, with their clients.
Jeff, what are you seeing?
So what I see is, the typical agencies that we've been dealing with 3 years ago now have popped up and have actual mobile strategies or mobile parts inside of that agency that actually handle just mobile buying and digital buying. So I think every single agency, if they don't already have a mobile buyer or a mobile team, is in the plans of getting that mobile team, and I think that's just going to continue to grow as they grow out their strategies internally.
Geolocation and privacy. Where do you see it going? What's the demand level, and what are the potential landmines that you're trying to protect against? I'll throw that out to any of you.
Sure, I'll start.
Okay.
Well, at Pandora, we take privacy very seriously, and it's obviously in the forefront of a lot of conversations on Capitol Hill right now. We're very deliberate about asking people to opt in. We show them essentially what the experience is going to be like before we get their permission. And while in the early days we launched successfully some trial campaigns, they were clunky. It required too many steps for a consumer to get to the promised land that the advertiser was seeking. So I would say as time evolves and as the privacy issues get settled and frankly as more education takes place, especially among the consumers, we'll probably see location-based advertising take a bigger role.
Amy?
And I think I would add to that, I think at the beginning of anything new, there's always a little bit of trepidation on the part of the consumer, and I think it all comes about lack of awareness and lack of understanding. I think, privacy is always a concern. And, think 5-10 years ago on the internet, privacy was a #1 topic all the time. And now everyone's telling each other what they had for lunch. So I think, the more that consumers are brought into the process and are aware of what's happening in terms of location-based services and what information is actually being shared and what information that they can actually control in terms of passing along, I think, once they have that insight into what's actually happening, I think the concerns will become less, and I think that location-based services will actually take off and become that much more popular.
We have the 2-minute warning, and we have one question. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm not sure I'm asking the right question of the right group of people, but mine is one of regulation as it relates to privacy. seems to me we have two sets of rules. We have rules for the internet and rules for phones. How is that going to impact on the use of mobile phones as it relates to people that are going to use that in relationship to privacy?
Anybody want to touch that?
Well, I mean, I'm not convinced that I fully understand the question, but I think I have it. You know, phones have GPS units, and the fact that that GPS allows a third party to know where you are is really at the foundation of this conversation about privacy. Whereas with the internet, I mean, you have an IP address, but it's not tied to a geolocation.
I'm the owner of a website, and I want to build a mobile circumstance. What are my responsibilities relative to the phone regulations versus internet regulations?
This is why lawyers make a lot of money. You could probably get 4 different answers up here, and it's complicated, and the other thing is it's shifting rapidly, and it's incredibly gray. So, horrible answer, but did I cover you guys well? Yeah, okay, good. And we'll end it. I think it's definitely time for a break now that we got the lawyers covered. Thank you all very much.